So what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be sharing with you the Vape Industry Business Exchange, which has been almost a year in the planning. And James is going to be doing most of the conversations about it. But, for myself, I've been a believer of collaboration for many, many years, and it's not a me first type of industry. It's a we first type of industry. So, what we did is that this is actually James's idea that came up quite some time ago, and he's going to share a little bit more about where that idea, the genesis, came from. But it's a combination of several things. It's a trade association that is supportive of the vaping industry, and it's also a buyers group, because one of the issues that we've seen in the industry over many, many years is that you have issues with MOQs and minimum this and minimum that. And so unfortunately, unless you are a really big player, no one really has any clout in the industry. So the goal of Vibe is to be able to take the cumulative power of many for everyone's benefit. Also, one of the problems is that there's a lot of manufacturers out there of liquids and of hardware that are not necessarily the kind of people that you want to do business with. They aren't doing things with good manufacturing processes. They may not be in it for the long term. They might be just riding this out for as long as possible. And so the goal of Vibe is to be a number of things, including a screening mechanism to make sure that the people that you are doing business with are people that are seriously dedicated to the mission statement. And again, our mission statement is to create a collaborative framework so that the entire vape industry can evolve, prosper, and thrive. And one of the things that we have seen over the years, of course, is that well, hang a second. Okay, it looks like I'm okay on sound. James, you can still hear me okay, right?
I can hear you just fine, Norm. I had my microphone muted for the moment.
Good, thank you for much. Because someone said had a note that said I was muted. All right, so Vibe's mission statement, of course, is to create a collaborative framework, the power of many instead of the power of one. 1 + 1 should not equal 2. 1 + 1 should actually equal 11. Only we're multiplying that many, many times over. And again, when Vibe was formed, we looked at all the different sectors within the industry: retail shops, manufacturers, wholesalers, online, importers, exporters, promotion people, the vaping community, and advocacy organizations. So the goal is to be able to support everyone within that framework. And so when we were putting this together, one of the things that we talk about all the time is the state of the liquid industry. And of course, it's been almost a year, August 8th, since we had the deeming regulations, which everyone thought was going to be the end of vaping, or some people thought it was the end of vaping. But the reality of it is that really what it did is it put some things in place, some things it delayed, and it created as many questions as it did answers. And so there is a reality out there. You might not see it right now. It might not be here next week or next month, but it will be there, where you have to ask yourself, is the vaping industry running out of juice? Because there will be regulations in place. So with all that being the case, I'm going to let James take over, tell us a little bit about himself, and I'm going to be controlling the screen. James, the floor is all yours, sir.
All right. Thank you, Norm. And I want to apologize to everyone for the confusion and the technology issues, but we've got it under control now. So, I started to say that I've spent 4 years in this industry, 3 of them as a national sales manager for a liquid manufacturer. And 18 months of that 3 years, about half of that time I spent calling on vape shops and talking to business owners all over the country, and interspersed with that, talking at trade shows with other e-liquid manufacturers and brand owners. So I felt like I got a really good immersion into the industry. And, there were a lot of things that I learned from that, and we're going to talk about a few of those. But before I do that, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the people that started Vibe. I got in touch with Norm Bauer, and Norm, of course, his reputation precedes him. We don't need to spend a lot of time talking about his eminence, but Norm has done a tremendous amount for this industry, somebody that I respect greatly. And I was excited when he said he was interested in working with me on developing a association that would do something like this. And then we got in touch with some friends that are entrepreneurs. They're the Content Dynamics Media Group. comprised of top minds in the digital marketing technology areas. We work specifically with a guy named Michael Steenson. This group is some of the most intelligent and get it done kind of people that you've ever met. We're excited to be partnering with them to make this all work from a technology standpoint. So starting with retailers, what we wanted to be able to do for retailers is provide them with that cumulative buying power, continue the great work that Vape Mentors is doing and collaborate with Vape Mentors to provide education. We want to circumvent MOQ issues because everyone, there may not be a lot of MOQs for minimum, but there are certainly plenty of volume discounts that are attainable with larger quantities that we feel like we can get around by working together as a group. Then providing, bringing in strategic partners who can provide legal guidance, legal support, regulatory guidance, and also to provide help with marketing. So there was a lot to cover for retailers. We're going to get into some more detail with that. Our objectives for retailers, first of all, we want to increase profitability. We want to stabilize the supply chain. We call it the value chain because in collaborative commerce or e-commerce, which is the next generation of e-commerce, which is what we're all about, we want to stabilize the value chain, and I'll get into some details on that in a moment. So we want to start by increasing profitability. How are we going to do that? We went backwards instead of forwards. We need to go forward twice now. Thank you. Innovative cost-saving options for acquisition of inventory, services, and knowledge. How are we going to do that? Two ways we're going to do it. First of all, with a buyers group. Norm, there you go. There's a buyers group, and then we're also going to do the guaranteed sales program. The guaranteed sale program has a tremendous amount of opportunity for both brand owners and for retailers, and we're going to get into some more discussion about that later. Getting on to stabilizing the value chain. Now, here's what that's about. Let's just take manufacturers and brand owners. There are about 10 facilities in the United States that we know of that are pharma level GMP based facilities that are truly completely on point with Title 21 Part 211. Now I'm getting into the weeds here with some regulatory stuff, but what we're talking about here is 10. So how are we going to stabilize the value chain with a system that certifies and rewards a commitment to FDA CGMP standards? As I was saying, there are about 10 GMP facilities in the United States that we know of that are pharma level. And Norm, what I mean by that is we're talking about facilities that have jumped ahead of the game and realized that every single industry that is regulated by the FDA is required to meet GMP requirements that are specific to that industry. Some have even been forward thinking enough to contact the FDA and say, in the absence of GMP standards for e-liquid, what do you suggest? And what they suggested is that they meet the requirements for pharmaceutical level manufacturing. That's Title 21, Part 211, which is finished pharmaceuticals. So besides those 10, there's probably another 20 that are committed to becoming compliant and actually have the resources to do that. Out of thousands, we're talking about 30 that are either already there or close to getting there. Then we have about 100 to 500, that's an estimate on our part, about 100 to 500 that are committed to compliance, but they don't have the resources to get there. That might be financial resources, it might be knowledge. Those are the ones that are most important to us. The other 30, the first 30 are probably going to be okay. That 100 to 500, those are the ones that we've got to help. And here's the thing that retailers need to realize. Retailers have a tremendous amount of power here. They can make the difference in how many of those 100 to 500 manufacturers make it through this process. And the way that they can do it is by concentrating their buying power on that 530 or so manufacturers and letting go of their notions of helping some neighbor or buddy who are trying to get an e-liquid company started, and who are making it out of their kitchen. That kind of thing is what's taking resources away from the companies that have a chance of making it if they just have enough resources. So, and then of course the rest of those thousands are not committed or have no idea. So we want to minimize compliance uncertainty for retailers. We want to make sure that they understand who the companies are that are focused on compliance. We're gonna do a lot of things to foster retailer knowledge, understanding of FDA compliance, not only for retailers, I mean for manufacturers, but also as a retailer, keep you from having to stay up at night worrying about whether or not you're in compliance as a retailer. So we're going to be watching that. So how do we help brand owners and manufacturers? Well, we're going to drastically reduce wholesale customer acquisition costs. The way that we're doing that is right now manufacturers and brand owners have a real difficult time standing out if they have gone to the trouble of trying to focus on FDA compliance. They're not standing out in the midst of those thousands and thousands who are in competition with them. That there's this saturated market that they're dealing with. They're gonna so we're gonna help them stand out and be able to point those out to retailers. We're gonna increase profitability with an innovative buyers group. We're gonna make it easier for them to buy in even larger quantities than what they're doing now. We're excited about our PMTA submission group. We're already beginning to develop this group. Basically, what we're talking about here is bringing together a large number of brand owners into one group and doing group buying power for all of the science and lab and everything in one group to be able to get the very lowest prices. And we're really excited about some of the things that we feel like we're going to be able to get accomplished after having a couple of conversations with some experts in the industry and some people who have actually talked with the FDA. We're talking about PMTA amounts that are going to be significantly lower than some of the numbers that you've heard. I'm not going to throw any numbers out there right now, but it's exciting information that we're looking forward to passing along to the people that get involved in the PMTA submission group. And then we're going to incentivize movement towards exceeding FDA requirements. Basically, what that means is by having our VIBE certification program, we're going to have incentives available to manufacturers for moving that quickly as in a very with incentive. Okay, I apologize. Incentives to help them move forward towards exceeding those FDA requirements in a number of different ways. We're going to give them access to the information, access to the consultants. We're going to get them discounts on those things, and we're also going to provide them with a large group of retailers who are saying they're interested in what they're doing if they will meet and exceed FDA requirements. So that's what we're offering to manufacturers. Now, we're not just doing this out of our own heads. We're not taking just the ideas of Norm and I and a few other staff members. We brought on a board of advisors. Now, I want to make it clear here, the board of advisors is not paid. They don't profit from anything going on with VIBE. These are people who just share our absolute commitment to the FDA, I mean, to the vaping industry and to helping the industry to thrive and survive. So Cynthia Cabrera is the first one on our list. She's former executive of Safata, president of the Kading Group. Now does a tremendous job already with providing lots of good consulting information in the area of compliance. Azim Chowdhury, of course, well known in the FDA compliance realm. Putting on some really great webinars on how to comply both in the U.S. and in the EU. Austin Hopper, a guy that's been around for years and years. We all know him as the face of vape, and some love him, some hate him, but everybody respects his knowledge about the industry. He's a great guy, and we're very excited to have his input. He's already given us a lot of great input. Then there's Rick Soltero with Instant GMP. He's the founder of that entity. And for any manufacturers that are looking for a solution to being able to document their GMP processes, We're really excited to be able to present what he has to offer, and he's going to give us a lot of great guidance as well. And then the next one is Nicole Erskine, our very first retailer member of Vibe. She and her partner Stacy have been supporters since the very beginning. We're very excited about their involvement on the board. The biggest reason for their involvement is because we wanted to have a retailer's voice on this board of advisors that we're going to listen to their advice more frequently and more in more detail. And there's room on the board for additional people. We're looking for just the right person or persons to add to our board of advisors. There's not a lot of pay in it. There's no pay in it, actually. It's more a matter of collaborating with us to make sure that Vibe provides the kind of guidance and the kind of support services to the industry that are necessary to help the industry do well. In addition to those advisory board members, we also have resource partners or strategic partners. This list is by no means complete. It's just an example. Of course, we're partners with Vape Mentors. We're also strategic partners with Keller and Heckman. We've mentioned them. We have I mentioned before that there are only about 10 pharma level GMP facilities in the country right now. 3 of those are Good Cat Laboratories, Biozone Laboratories, and Sugar Creek Bottling Company. Good Cat in Florida, Biozone in Northern California, Sugar Creek in Indiana. In fact, they were the first licensee under the very difficult licensing procedures that the state of Indiana put on. We're really excited about those partnerships. They're going to not only provide us with a tremendous amount of input, but they're also going to be a great opportunity for us to bring brand owners to places where they can get their e-liquids manufactured in a manner that they're not going to have to worry about the FDA. Additional compliance professionals, laboratory people, things like that. I'm sorry, Norm, that's okay. You could have gone ahead. But software, laboratory type professionals. So, and that's just the beginning of the list. We're really excited about some of the ones that we're talking to now, and we can't wait to begin announcing those additional partnerships as we go. So our next webinar is going to be Thursday. It's going to be an overview of the Guaranteed Sale Program. We're going to dive in a little bit deeper. We're going to be talking about how it is different from your current e-liquid program as a brand, as a retailer. It's going to be very different from anything you've seen as a brand owner. It's only going to be using Vibe certified brands. That's going to help elevate those brands above the competition. The retailer gets no risk inventory. They get to try it out, not only just try it, but actually have it for sale in their shop before they actually buy it. So it's a test marketing product placement program. This program is going to be profiled in webinar number 2, and then 3 and 4 will go into more depth. So we're excited about that. So what do we ask of everyone who's watching this now and watching it after the fact? We want to let you know that there's an opportunity for a brand owner, manufacturer, wholesaler, those types. So anybody who is a vendor to vaping retailers, those are the ones that we're talking to as a Vibe certified partner. You need to meet Vibe certified standards to be a Vibe certified partner. Now, that isn't terribly difficult. There are going to be some standards in place from the very beginning. You're going to need to be able to prove to us that you're on the path and you have a commitment and you have perhaps some of the resources necessary to be able to get there. From there, we'll start working with you and helping to bring you along down that path and incentivize you to get further down the path. It's going to help you stand out in a crowded, saturated market. It's going to give you the ability to promote your products to a captive audience of retailers. Eventually, the monthly membership fee is $899 a month, but our first 100 total members, that's retailers and certified partners, the first 100 members, we've got a charter membership price. So for certified partners, it's $299 a month for life. No more than that. It's going to remain that same amount as a charter member. So you've got an opportunity right now if you're part of that group. Now, going on to retailers, As a retailer, a Vibe retailer, you get the opportunity to have group buying power. You don't have to worry anymore about the longevity of your vendors. If you're going with Vibe certified vendors, we're taking care of that worry for you. We're the ones that are asking the tough questions, asking them if they can show us the table of contents from their standard operating procedures, asking them to provide certificates of insurance and all of the things that help to prove that they truly are on the path. Less risk on inventory buys, and that's related primarily to the certified or the Vibe Guaranteed Sale Program. And then the monthly membership, normally $299 per month, but in our first 100 members, we're going to bring in some charter members at only $99 a month for life. So again, a great opportunity for you as a Vibe retailer or as a retailer to get in on the ground floor and get it for a lower cost. The first benefit that you'll get from that is going to be through the guaranteed sale program. There's a lot of benefits you'll be able to gain from the beginning, but the very first one, I think you're going to be really excited about what the guaranteed sale program can do for you. That's, of course, what we're going to be talking about in the next couple of webinars. So yes, we're ready for Q&A now. And I see, Norm, that Ed brought up the question of does GMP compliance have an effect on hardware manufacturers? And
That is correct, sir.
that is absolutely correct. All manufacturers in the industry will be required to meet GMP standards. There'll be different standards for hardware than there is for e-liquid. And but they can expect those to happen. Here's something else that a lot of people don't realize, and that is those PMTAs that currently are scheduled for November of 2018, the submission date. When those are submitted, there's a whole section on manufacturing. And even if the FDA has failed to provide GMP standards for our industry by that time, if your PMTA does not show that you are substantially GMP compliant, then your PMTA has no chance of making it through. So you're going to have those standards. You're going to have to be able to prove that you're manufacturing under GMP standards. There's lots of resources out there. Many have already focused on Title 21, Part 211 of the Code of Federal Regulations. I don't mean to get into those big, nasty words, but if you are interested in knowing more about pharmaceutical level GMPs, then all you need to do is Google, just write this down, 21 CFR 211. If you Google that, that'll bring up Title 21, Part 211 of the Code of Federal Regulations, and that's going to give you a lot of detail. That's a great place to start to realize what it's going to take. Now, it's only about 50 pages in tiny little type. If you spread it out for regular type, it's probably going to be more like 100 pages. And that's just the beginning. That's just the overview of what you have to do. If you were to get into the specifics of how to actually manage to fulfill the requirements of a single paragraph, it might take 4 or 5 more pages just for that single paragraph. So there's a lot involved, but we've got the resources. We've got the professionals that know what to do. So if you know people that are looking to be able to comply with GMP, we've got people we can refer you to.
Excellent. So, James, I wanted to address what we consider to be standard operating procedure in the liquid industry because as this industry has grown as big as it is, we have, brick and mortar retail shops that numbered about 1,500 when I started in the business exactly 4 years ago. And it's estimated right now there's probably somewhere between 8,000-9,000 retail shops and about the same number of liquid companies compared to when I started 4 years ago in 2013. There was less than 500 for sure. Today, there's multiple times that. So you being in the liquid industry yourself for several years, I'd love for you to share some of the challenges that a lot of people have out there trying to get shelf space, because that's a problem. That's a real challenge. And obviously, the projections are that we're going to see the demise of 80%, 90%, possibly of the industry. And Vibe, of course, is dedicated, is focused on supporting those people who are in it for the long term. They aren't just looking to ride this pony into the sunset. They actually plan on being there for the long run. So I'd love for you to share maybe some of the challenges that you've seen as an e-liquid manufacturer of the difficulty in getting into shops, and how our guaranteed sale program, along with other things, can really be an asset.
I love that question, Norm, and I think you and I were talking recently, and this may have led to this question. One of the things that I think back on is the number of days where we spent. And listen, I understand as a retailer, you're getting 10, 15, 20 calls a day from these telemarketers who are cold calling into your store, trying to get their brand into your store. You're sick of hearing from them. You're tired of it. They feel a little like something stuck to the bottom of your shoe. They're bothersome to you. And here's the other side of that. As a manufacturer, and this experience that I had as a large volume manufacturer trying to sell into retail stores, we would come to the end of the day, and I would sit down usually, just sort of relax a little bit at the end of the day with my top salesperson in the group, and we would talk, and I can't tell you the number of times when we said there's got to be a better way. There's got to be some better way for communication to occur between manufacturers who are serious about compliance, who have something far better than what is mostly out there with those thousands of manufacturers. There's, like I said, there's probably only about 500 or so that you should be dealing with out of thousands. And there's really only about 30 or so that are pretty close. But if we were to concentrate all of our efforts as retailers, if the entire industry as retailers were to concentrate their buying power on those 500 or so, and that's a wild guess, but roughly 500 or so manufacturers who are at least committed to compliance, maybe don't have all the resources they need. If we could do that, what would happen is that would just sort of automatically cause the ones that aren't committed to sort of go away, and it's going to also give those companies the resources they need to be able to blow up and survive and have the resources they need to pay for the cost of these coming regulations. So that's the thing that stands out in my mind mostly is the idea that there's got to be a better way. So what is that better way? Well, first of all, right now there is no way for a retailer to really be able to tell the difference between somebody who's just doing this for the short term or someone who's doing it for the long run. Of course you're going to ask, and what they're all going to say is, "Oh, don't worry about us. That's no problem. We've already registered, or we've got a ISO 7 clean room," or they give you stuff that sounds pretty impressive, but that doesn't mean they know about 21 CFR 211. That doesn't mean that they know about what it's going to take to get there. That doesn't mean they're making any effort to get there. So it's extremely important that the right questions be asked, and you can't lead them, and you have to ask the kind of questions that will give you the right answers. We've already established sort of a protocol for being able to do that. So the first thing we've done is we've developed this VIBE certification program. We're still working on those details, but what we want to do is make absolutely sure that when we say they're VIBE certified, that's something that you can feel reasonably assured that this is a company that is making absolutely satisfactory progress towards FDA compliance. It's not just some company that's just trying to claim that they are in order to avoid losing market share, because that's the problem. None of them are going to want to tell the truth, and the reason they're not going to want to tell the truth is because they can't afford to lose the market share. So there's got to be a way to discern the difference, and that's what we're going to try to do with certification. Then
Excellent.
the second part of that is the guaranteed sale program. We're talking about VIBE certified brands. Now what we're looking at is the other thing that the retailer deals with, besides the whole problem of having all those calls and not being able to tell the difference between them. You also have a retailer who I've talked to a lot of retailers. Very few of them have money to burn. They all have tight budgets. Everybody does. And if you're going to make a decision to bring an e-liquid into your company, it doesn't matter if it's made in the best standards ever. If it's not going to sell, it's no good for you. So the other part of that equation is, how can you tell that it's actually going to do well in your store? Out of 500 or so manufacturers, that's going to be several thousand brands still. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for you to find brands that are going to actually work in your store. But how do you do that? How do you go through those and not make a lot of inventory purchasing mistakes that end up just gathering dust on the shelf and hurting you financially? And the way to do that, of course, well, not of course, but you'll see that, of course, the way to do that is through the guaranteed sale program, because we're going to provide retailers with an opportunity to test market brands and actually have them available for sale. As Nicole said on our website, and to us that we quoted her on, Nicole on our advisory board, it's one thing for a consumer or a staff member to say, yes, that's good, I'll buy that. And it's another for them to actually put their money down. And that's the advantage of the guaranteed sale program. You can actually sell inventory and find out how it's selling before you make a commitment to buying inventory in. So
excellent. So James, one of the new persons who came on board asked a question about Vibe, how long it's been around, and what was the genesis of us, and how many members. And Robert, just so you know, we did cover that earlier. This webinar that you hear right now is recorded. It will be available for review and also for sharing, and hopefully we'll be able to avoid some of the technical problems we had earlier. But maybe you can, it was almost a year ago. It was last August, and James and I had been doing business because I had my own liquid line that I was developing strictly for retail shops for developing their own house brand. And I actually chose to do business with his company, his former company, out of all the multiple options that I had out there, because of course I know so many people in the industry. And James was my account rep. And so he and I had conversations about, there really should be some type of a trade association or a buyers group that combines the power of all these many people. And I said, that's a great idea, and that has been bandied about for quite some time, but no one has actually done it. And this is really not anything that falls under the umbrella of an advocacy group. We have great relationships and a tremendous amount of respect for SFATA, for CASA, for VTA, for all the right to be smoke free. Everyone has their particular position, but they are focused on the legal, legislative, regulatory survival of the industry. And so one of the things that resonated with me as a business strategist is that, that's what I do, is I help businesses start and businesses grow. And so as we saw looking down the road, the demise of so many vape shops, our question was, how do we make sure that the people who are serious get the support that they need? Because you can't win by yourself. And so is there anything you would like to add about that? You've had more conversations with people as far as, we're actually just starting to take members right now. We had a few people that wanted early in, and they actually signed on before the soft launch. That's really kind of what this is. This is a soft launch to be able to get some of the glitches out of the way. But for the most part, we are in business. We have a sales force. And James, maybe you can talk a little bit about our sales team and what their job is, and what we're looking for in the way of liquid lines to be able to be part of our program.
Okay, right now we have about 18 strategic partners. That's made up of everyone like vape mentors, some brand owners, some manufacturers, about 18 or so of those. There are probably about 15 others that we're in discussions with right now. So that's moving very, very quickly. We've sort of avoided talking to retailers in great detail because we wanted to be able to have something to offer to them. We're just now launching with that. I think we've got about 7 or 8 retailers right now. We're projecting to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 retailers or better before the end of the year. I think we'll be very surprised if we don't have at least 500 retailers as a part of this. We're getting a great response from everybody we talk to. Our onboard program for retailers is through the Guaranteed Sale Program. So there are going to be some retailers that if they don't feel like the Guaranteed Sale Program is right for them, they may want to hold back. That's understandable. We've got so many programs in the works. We know we're going to find things that are going to be well worth the money. So numbers are not huge right now, but having just launched, we're proud of what we've done just sort of organically without even getting started.
Yeah, and we would love input from anyone and everyone because, when you develop something like this, we need to be sure that we are offering what you want, not what we want to offer, but what you want. Are there any resource partners that you would like us to engage? Let us know. Are there any particular protocols that you think would be beneficial to us? Let us know. And so the reality of it is that we have put some numbers in place and they're not aggressive number. We do not anticipate of having thousands of members of Vibe. We're going to have, probably, less than 1,000 at least for the next 2 years as the industry kind of goes through its adjustment period. And so the reality of it is, this is not for the many. This is for the people who are seriously dedicated and focused on that. Now, so Benton has a question about, is Vibe exclusively concerned with U.S. based operations, or will there be collaboration with international liquids and hardware manufacturers as well? I have a comment on that, James, but I'd love you to go first, sir.
Okay, we are currently concerned and focused on U.S. based operations, but we're wide open to the idea of beginning to work and collaborate with international companies, especially those who are wanting to market into the U.S. And even the ones who are not. But at the same time, we want to go and focus on our strength, and our strength right now is U.S. based operations. So that's going to be where we're going to focus our efforts. Something else that I want to say. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm going to let you also give your response to that question as well.
Well, I just want to say that the vape industry has changed and it continues to evolve. And when I look at what it looked like 4 years ago and 3 years ago and 2 years ago and even 6 months ago, it's about as evolving as any industry that I've ever been in 40 years of entrepreneurship. And the reality of it is it will continue to do exactly that. So one of the things that you cannot dispute, you cannot argue, and you cannot ignore is the fact that the vaping industry is more international than ever before. It used to be something that was homegrown here in the U.S., people making liquids in their backyard, to coin a cliche, or in their back room, or in their homes, in their bathtubs, whatever the case might be. And then people thought that they should be a little bit smarter, and they opened up what they called clean rooms, which are really nothing more than rooms that had some type of plastic sheeting around it for some type of HEPA filtering, which of course was ludicrous. But that's what we did. That's what we knew at that time. And of course, the guidelines have changed. And at that time, there really wasn't much interest in overseas markets. Some people, of course, who maybe had relationships. There's a lot of significant ethnicities in this industry that have connections overseas, whether it be in Europe or primarily in Asia. They started doing business overseas, but the challenge was that we here in the U.S. didn't want to do business with overseas companies unless it was hardware. The overseas hardware market pretty much was the only game in town for a long, long time. And you didn't want to do any liquids from out of state or out of country because it was usually done with no GMP at all. The rules have changed, guys, and everyone understands that, where you have great liquids coming out of England, out of France, out of Germany, out of Italy, and what have you. And so Vibe is very much an international consortium. Make no mistake about it. We are not seeking out that particular business right now, but we are not ignoring it. As it turns out, I have a very, very good connection in Europe. She has been there for about a year, and she used to be one of our editors at Vape Magazine. And so she is very familiar with what's going on. And so she's going to start reaching out to the people that she knows overseas. And I've got other people as well. So the reality of it is, Robert, to answer your question, is that yes, as time goes on, this will be an international operation. And even though they have different standards over there from an official, standpoint, of course, you've got the TPD, and here we have the deeming regs, which may or may not ever come to be. There's lots of speculation about whether it's going to be delayed, possibly totally wiped clean. There's just a lot of questions going on, and where it stands right now, the Fed is not really the problem. It's the states that are the problem right now with their heavy-handed taxations and some of the local regulators. So that's kind of my take on where we are going towards the international market. And James, you wanted to say something. And if anyone else has any comments or questions, this is very much an open forum. We have an intimate group. This is our first soft launch, and we certainly welcome anything and everything you have to offer.
Norm, I did want to say something, and it relates sort of to what you were just talking about. Um, and Ed, you're right. TPD is a much bigger animal than the FDA. But here's what we know right now about the federal regulatory environment in the United States. There's a lot of efforts. PMTA submission date getting moved back through legal means. There's efforts to get the predicate date moved by legislation. There's efforts to try to get to the FDA director and maybe soften everything. But here's the thing that we know for sure: the FDA is very unlikely to just go away. There's no question in my mind that the FDA is going to be a part of our regulatory environment. They're going to be the federal regulator for this industry. To what extent they're going to be regulating is still a question, but here's what we do know. The FDA will, every single industry that's regulated by the FDA, every single one of them, the manufacturers are under CGMPs. So if you're holding back on trying to get more compliant with manufacturing standards because you think, well, that may not happen, you're probably making a big mistake, because there's a lot of effort that needs to be done, and many things that you need to be doing to get ready for CGMPs are just good business anyway, and are going to make a big difference for you marketing wise in the long run. So if you're holding back on trying to get your facility ready, or know people that are holding back, um, we would love to talk to them, because we don't want to see them become part of the that remainder of that fourth group that's not committed or has no idea. We want to help bring as many people into that group that's going to remain, because here's the bottom line: if we don't do anything and only 30 manufacturers end up getting through this process, this industry is going to have a huge supply and demand disruption of the industry. And the result is we're going to lose market share to cigarettes. If we can bring in as many of those 100 to 500 that are also committed but are on the bubble, we can bring those into it. We can probably bring their manufacturing capacities up to the point that we can exceed what we've got right now, and we can, and maybe even take away market share from cigarettes even further. And there's tremendous opportunity there, but we've got to work together to get that done.
Excellent. All right. So someone asked a little earlier, how do you get a hold of us? This is James's information, his number, his email address, the website. And again, just like every website out there, this is an evolving process. So the website will continually have more information added to it. We're going to be drilling down the blog so that we provide more information, and we would love to have feedback from all of you and everyone who's listening on a recorded session, because the reality is that this is going to be posted on YouTube. It's going to be available for review, and then we'll be able to spread it on a worldwide level, certainly on a national level right here. And so, again, our thanks for dealing with us as we went through some technical issues at the beginning. And one more call out for any questions. We wanted to try to wrap this up at the top of the hour, and we are. So, James, any more closing thoughts? And if not, then, or if you do, then we'll just go ahead and bring this to a close and let everyone go on with their evenings.
I just want to thank everyone for their patience, and thank them for paying attention to what we're talking about. We hope that you feel like you've gotten something out of it.
Excellent. Excellent. And I agree. So again, ladies and gentlemen, it is Proposition 56. And so that was a question that just came up in the state of California. So again, thank you so much for everything this evening. And we're just a reminder, our next webinar is going to be on Thursday. That's roughly 48 hours from now. We promise we will dial in on time. It's going to be 5 p.m. West Coast time, 8 o'clock East Coast time, and everything in between. And we're going to be talking about the guaranteed sale program, because this is something that is truly, truly revolutionary. And we think that if you're a retail shop, or if you're a liquid manufacturer, this will make a huge, huge impact on your future development of your company. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on our inaugural launch of the Vape Industry Business Exchange, and we'll talk to you in about 48 hours. Good night.